Hi, this is a update to the post that I did a couple of days ago on the situation with the HMRC in the UK and the self-employed. Today I'm just going to give 4 short suggestions for how the situation can and needs to be resolved, and see how that goes. So the first thing, the key issue here that really upsets the whole apple cart is the fact that there is a difference between the NI insurance, between what an employee contributes and what an independent contractor or self-employed person contributes. Whenever you go down that route in the public policy area and this sort of thing, it always leads to trouble, So, and I'll give a quick example. In Australia, there is no difference in the entitlements to social security issues between being an employee and being a self-employed person, and we've looked to try and enforce that or get that situation for a long time. So, simple example, if someone is looking for access to state-funded maternity or paternity leave, in Australia it doesn't matter whether you are a self-employed contractor or a employee. What determines your entitlement is to whether or not you have had a baby. Now that's pretty sensible stuff. So really, while you continue this difference in the UK between entitlements subject to being an employee or a contractor, you will always have the HMR screaming saying that there's revenue loss, because they don't look at the overall picture. They are charged simply to get in money, and that's all they're interested in. They're not responsible or interested in the overall budgetary situation of the government. That's something Parliament needs to look after. So the first thing I'd say, eliminate the difference between being a contractor and a employee on NI insurance, but frankly, I don't think that's going to happen. So while that situation continues, there's going to be this ongoing battle between defining who's a employee and who is a self-employed contractor. So the second thing that I'd be suggesting, because I think that's probably going to continue, is that the HMRC on this issue of determining common law status have proven over 20 years enormous and gross incompetence. They have lost the bulk of the cases that they've taken to court. They are just not qualified to do that job. So the second thing I'd recommend is that the ability of the HMRC to determine status, common law status, has to be taken away from them and put in the hands of an independent body. You have to remember that the HMRC is charged with collecting money. They see that there's a difference between employee and contractor, so they have an exceedingly vested self-interest in finding people to be employees. That of itself determines that they cannot and will not ever do the job in a proper, ethical and independent and factual-based manner. They will always seek to get the conclusion that they want. In other words, they want to force everyone into employment. So therefore, because the common law is supposed to be a process of being independent, this task needs to be taken away from the HMRC. The next area to look at is the fact of the engaging party or the employers and their responsibility to pay NI. It's absurd and entirely unjust that because the engaging party or the employer escapes having to pay additional NI if they use independent contractors or self-employed people, that they escape that liability. And so the difference there needs to be eliminated as well. And this business of the HMRC seeking to then attack the self-employed to recover what they consider to be revenue losses and then double taxing the self-employed is just public policy disaster zone. So there should be a clear law in place in which there is no difference between being an employee or a contractor in terms of the engaging party's responsibility to pay additional NI, and that cost should be theirs and theirs alone. There should be enforcement legislation backing that up that says that if the engaging party seeks to take money away from the independent contractor because they have that cost, then that should be prohibited and that should be illegal. The final thing relates to the loan charge situation. The reality is that this is a problem that has been created by the HMRC themselves. Their outrageous double taxing behaviour has caused people to go into loan charges and all this sort of nonsense that's happened there. There has been clear rorting of the tax system, but to turn around and retrospectively make people responsible for this is just entirely undemocratic, breaks every notion of rule of law and has to be stopped. So the retrospective aspect of it has to be removed. And the other thing is that the report from the House of Lords has clearly said that self-employed people have been involved in these schemes need to take some measure of responsibility. So there needs to be a good look at a tax amnesty, which will give some level of clearing up of the case. Self-employed people do need to accept some measure of responsibility, but this retrospectivity and the bankrupting of people, the putting them in, taking their houses away from them, the causing of suicides, and there are bound to be more of those, that sort of thing has to stop, and stop very, very quickly. So there are the 4 suggestions that I've got. Somehow I don't think the politics of this will seek to resolve it. I think it will probably continue on as a complete and total mess. But I come back to a single point here, that the HMRC has proven that they have been the creators of the problem. They are incapable of sensibly fixing the problem. The problem will continue. And so you've still got, this comes back to one thing. Parliament and the government must take control of the situation. And a simple theme, that democracy must dictate to bureaucracy. And that's where the solution lies, and it's in the hands of the parliamentarians and the government to fix this. And I've given you 4 suggestions, which seem to be common sense. See how you go.